Hello YouTube, this is the Nerdy Tribunal, where a bunch of nerds talk about nerdy stuff. Today we'll be talking about The Defenders, shown on Netflix, that was released on August 18th. Obviously it's spoilers, we're going to be talking about the full 8 episodes that were released, so please go watch those, come back and watch our video. Alright guys, so Netflix released The Defenders on August 18th. We've managed to watch all 8 episodes. Let's start off with everyone's just... You know what? I'm just going to pose the questions just to save a bit of... so we don't go on a side tangent here. Did you like the series? Victor?
Well, if you look at it as a simple yes or no question, I did enjoy it.
Alright, Ernest, you?
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed the 8 episodes.
Tom?
Yeah, I loved it. It's better than Iron Fist.
I didn't... I'm joking, I liked it too. It was pretty good. So the series is a lot shorter than the other one. The other ones that were released prior to this. So did any of you guys feel like they rushed the story a bit, or they kind of rushed anything? Because that would be a kind of, like, when you put it on 8 episodes, it's likely that they kind of skipped on a few things. I'm not familiar with the origin story of the Defenders, like how they actually met, but personally I don't feel that matters. Because of everyone else's story in the Netflix world isn't exactly the same. So, Tom, do you think it was kind of rushed? How do you feel about the pacing?
I think with 8 episodes, it actually makes the pacing better. If you've watched all the other series on Netflix, where it's all 13 episodes, approximately 45 minutes to an hour long. I think there was a couple that were a little longer than that. It actually makes it very grueling, and especially early on, and a few episodes in between later on, it kind of has a slow burn where you just kind of want to stop and kind of reevaluate your day. Like, it's a rough time when you watch 13 episodes. The pacing is fine. It worked for the show. They didn't have to do much rushing because all the other characters, or the main 4 characters, have been established in their own series before. All they really did was expand more on the hand and the 5 fingers of the hand. So 8 episodes is actually probably perfect. If they wanted to, I think they could have added 1 or 2 more episodes. But I think I like the 8 episode format.
No, I agree with Tom here. There wasn't really a lull when you have 8 episodes compared to 13. Everything kind of went smoothly. Good amount of, I guess you can say, build up, character development, fight scenes. I would have liked to see another major fight scene to go along with everything. But overall, I think it was the right amount of episodes. It went smoothly. No lulls, and yeah, it was good.
It's good that you talk about the fight scenes. How did you guys feel about the action sequences this time around? I noticed that, personally, I felt like it was almost at the level of DareDevil. Not quite, but it was still pretty decent. So that was a nice... I won't say surprise. I kind of they met my expectations. I don't feel it was like over the top, but it was pretty good. Ernest, what do you think about just watching it in general? Did you think about the kind of action sequences?
I feel that the fight scenes were just enough. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. So understand that Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, they don't really have skills in terms of fighting. However, that Matt Murdock and Iron Fist, they do have kung fu skills. So putting them together a couple of times with the fights during the episodes, I think it was pretty good. It wasn't too much. And, this is how they progress, right? So maybe later when we do see Season 2 of Defenders, there's going to be new things and then a new fight scene, and they'll gain new skills.
No, the quality of the fight scenes was a lot better for sure. We touched upon it when Iron Fist came out, that because he wasn't a well-trained fighter, he didn't have the costume to put another stunt in to do the fighting. It was kind of, I guess you can say, it wasn't too par. But because you have the entire team fighting at all these fight scenes, they can take away from the lack of skill, or they can maybe blur a stunt man in there. So overall, it kind of made everyone look a lot better when it was fighting. Even that one scene where Iron Fist fought by himself against a few of the henchmen, he had his hoodie on, so it kind of helped put a stunt man in to improve the fight scene, the fight choreography in that one portion. So everything did look a lot better compared to the previous Netflix fight scenes in all the series.
Yeah, and like to expand on that, it's like we're talking about the actor itself, not the character of Iron Fist, because he's not a trained martial artist in real life. But you watch something like Daredevil, where he is wearing costume, he's wearing his hood or a bandana or whatever you want to call it, and also Daredevil is very dark the way it's filmed, so you can kind of get away with imperfections. But with this show, it was leaning more towards the fight sequences of Daredevil than it was an Iron Fist. So the fight sequences and action was better choreographed than it was for Iron Fist.
So actually, that's a really good segue into my next question here. Tom, you just said that the fight sequences were leaned heavily towards. Oh, sorry, that's not what you actually said. Leaned towards Daredevil and his fighting skills. I noticed the entire story itself is really heavy on Daredevil's kind of background and Iron Fist's background, which makes sense as we're talking about the hand here, right? But like with him and his relationship with Elektra and Iron Fist's relationship to Kunlun and the hand, like the story really circled around those two, and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones were kind of inserted into this world, which adds a story. That's literally exactly what happened. They weren't part of this and they were kind of dragged into it. On a storyline basis, how'd you guys feel overall? Like they told this story. I don't have any, as I said earlier, I don't know much about the origin stories of how the Defenders met. And again, I don't think that matters because those kind of situations are kind of dependent on each of their individual lore. But just as a story as a whole, how'd you guys feel about, was it good? Like, just was it good at all?
No, I found that storyline was very well done. When it comes to the hand, it was very vague in the comics. They didn't really brush up on... they did kind of go over how it first started many, many years ago, way back in ancient times. But I think they did a really good job bringing it into the Netflix series. I thought that there was a few missed opportunities. When it comes to the five fingers of the hand, the leaders themselves, the only one that was in the comics was Bakuto. Everyone else, even Alexandra, Madame Gao, and the two, the
so one day and
yeah.
and I forgot the Japanese guy's name.
Japanese guys, I always forget.
So I found that it's a missed opportunity to bring maybe a few more well-known Marvel characters in, maybe like a Gorgon or Tarantula, or there's a few more other characters that been with the hand in the past that I thought they could have used them to maybe pose a bigger threat. But I think overall the story was still pretty well done. They made everything make sense, everything tied in well. But once again, a few missed opportunities, but I guess with resources and what they have, maybe there's a conflict of rights or whatnot. Maybe they couldn't bring those characters in. But overall, it was pretty well done.
I think with that point of bringing certain characters in, it made sense why they didn't go that route, because of the hand wasn't established enough for all of us when we watched the previous shows. So it makes sense for them to bring someone that you've seen, like an Elektra, and then kind of add in a new person like Alexandra, right? Sigourney Weaver. So then you don't have too much to learn about new people. And Alexandra's story is easy enough to explain, where you do not need to go so far into her backstory that people will be confused or overwhelmed by the new characters, right? I think if they do a second Defenders, when everyone's kind of now more of a team where they are willing to be together, then you bring in someone more powered or bigger to fight.
Well, to me, I found out the threat of Alexandra wasn't really there.
Yeah.
She was seen as the main go-to person for the entire hand leadership because she made those connections in the past. She built upon the whole business aspect, so that's how they have the worldwide hand thing. But in terms of what she brought to the table in terms of fighting, she was not hands-on at all, right? They even talked about it. She's not a hands-on type of villain. So I thought there was an opportunity to have maybe someone as a bigger threat. So when Elektra steps into the role of leader, she's seen as someone that's a bigger threat, someone that could be seen as a more long-term villain.
I don't know, the way they did that, it seemed like they were trying to establish that Alexandra was dangerous without getting her hands dirty, because she doesn't, right? That's what they said. So, and it kind of proves it a bit. They kind of missed it a little, but you can kind of see it when she brought in Black Sky or Elektra. So Elektra in the end kills her, but it's you can see that it's more of an assumption at this point that that's what she did in the past, where she had things or weapons where maybe her other members of that group didn't want to mess with her because she could stop them.
So the story for me, coming from kind of just like watching Netflix and learning, like, that's all I know. One thing I found that was, I won't say it was bad or like kind of not ruins the show, because I still thought it was pretty good, is that the power levels were really inconsistent. Because when you talk about Alexandra, everyone's afraid of her, or at least, because when I remember that scene when Madame Gao, like you see Madame Gao in all the series, she's pretty badass. Like she's a little old lady, and then I think it was in Iron Fist where she finally uses her chi and does like a force push. I forgot who she did that to, probably Danny, and just force pushed them away. And then this, in the Defenders, you see her actually fight, which was kind of cool.
She takes a beating too, which is pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool. Like it was just like, it was good that they kind of brought these guys in and finally showed that they showed kind of the physical power of the hand, but the difference in power, or the inconsistency of showing how strong someone is in the Defenders it was really questionable to me. Like I have a few examples. So for one, we know that everyone's afraid of Alexandra, and I assumed like that was kind of a nice way to introduce. Oh, she's super powerful. Like maybe she's a great fighter, or she's really like has a lot of like influence in the hand, and we find out that she's the leader of the hand, right? So okay, but then you don't really know why she's the leader. She kind of fights like the young, like the reborn Elektra / Black Sky in the beginning, a few moves here and there. But I was like, well, that doesn't really prove much. I think Madame Gao did the same in one of the older, one of the other TV series. So, like, and then throughout the entire, the first, I guess, half or first front end of the TV show or the storyline, they're all afraid of her, and at some point they turn on her. And then near the end, Elektra's like one shot kills her with a knife, like from behind. But like you would think someone with such high martial arts prowess, like the only that would have been able to detect it, or like maybe or her guards down. I understand that. It just felt like the power level was very inconsistent, and it kind of threw me off, like in the entirety of the storyline. And it didn't ruin the story. It's just like that. As a casual viewer, I really wish they were a bit more consistent, so that I can understand the characters a bit more. I have another example, but I think Vic wants to say something.
Yeah, like in the comics, when it comes to an organization like the Hand, they have to have a leader that is powerful in all aspects. So when it came to Alexandra, my issue with her was she can talk the talk, but she definitely couldn't walk the walk. And I thought that if you had someone that was capable in terms of being that leader, yet at the same time was able to handle things themselves, they would have posed to be an actual leader of the hand, instead of someone just filling the spot because everyone else wasn't capable.
The way I was watching it, right? Alexandra said something to the members of the hand, where when they all kind of wanted to mutiny, and it was that while everyone was fighting themselves, trying to kill each other, that she was dealing with everything. Like, she could handle everything. Like, she has been. She kept the hand going. So I feel like everyone was very... there has to be some sort of... There has to be a reason why they're afraid of her, or maybe respect her of some sort. Maybe when she was not sick, she had a certain power, but they never explained why she is so quote-unquote powerful.
I think that's where, when Elektra was in power and Madame Gao was talking to her, she was the one that basically built the hand out across the world. So I think that's why they kind of put her ahead, because she had those connections. She was the one, because you can say she was like the poster for the hand, yet not being the hand. So she had those connections without getting into trouble, without people finding out what's going on in the background, right?
Yeah, it seems like, yeah. So I think they all know that they kind of need someone like her, because they aren't someone like her. They can't. She's the reason why they have the funds or resources to do the bad stuff that they want to do while they're trying to fight each other, or fight DareDevil or whoever they're trying to take care of, right? But I'm wondering if she had some sort of power. It's kind of odd why no one did anything to her earlier.
We don't know, because if you look at the 5 leaders of the hand, it seemed like only Madame Gao really had the powers. Everyone else was like either a really well-trained fighter, or maybe a great strategist. But from what we can see, only Madame Gao was the one that was able to use her chi to push and have like maybe an augmented strength kind of deal.
Yeah, it seems like, well, from what I saw, it seemed like they all had something. I don't know what it was. Gao had her weird force push thing, maybe some sort of super strength. I don't know. Bakuto was shot by Misty in the last episode a few times. He just kept going, and it feels like maybe he was invulnerable to that. I don't know what was going on there. There was a point when Elektra and DareDevil were fighting. Matt Murdock was fighting outside of the restaurant, and she kind of hit the Japanese guy. Always forget his name too. And he kind of, when he finally got up, it looked like maybe his arm was broken or dislocated or something, and he snapped it back. So it seems like they all have some sort of power, just not all of them were shown.
Well, they're all from Kunlun, so I guess maybe there were different points of the training, so maybe some was better trained than others.
Yeah, possibly.
I also saw that the Japanese guy actually was able to kick and knock back Luke Cage. Like, if you watch the restaurant fight, that also happened. So you know how he says that not a lot of people can knock him out, like one punch, or even knock him back. But Iron Fist was able to do that. I don't know. I just saw the Japanese guy did that too. So I'm wondering if they all have some sort of powers.
Yeah, like you look at the henchmen, and even when Danny was trying to hit Luke Cage, like, it didn't affect him, but yeah, that member of the hand hits him normally with no power, like the actual Iron Fist, and he's actually like knocking him back, hurting him, and yeah, so it's not explained, but I think it's more of, we should just kind of assume that because they're from Kunlun, they have the ability to tap into their chi and use some sort of power.
So we just confirmed that the Japanese guy's name is Murakami, by the way.
There you go. Got it now. It's interesting now you guys talk about, because I was bringing another point I wanted to bring up, like in terms of this sort of, I'm going to call it inconsistency. And the reason why it doesn't it doesn't bug me like really. It doesn't really take away from the story. It's just these small little. Can I call these plot holes or no, not plot holes? Continuity issues that that kind of make it like, oh man, like if they just adjusted it a little bit better, it would be a little bit more whole. Like I'm being a little bit nitpicky because it sounds like overall we all really enjoyed it, and overall like. We talked about the pacing, like, cause that's all, like, in the story and the action. Everything kind of, like, is up to par and probably a little bit above par. So I'm being a little bit nitpicky in terms of, especially the continuity issues. And one thing that kind of bugged me was the power levels, the physical power levels of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, respectively. So I understand that Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, A, don't like killing people, B, don't really want to hurt people. However, so that would explain like why I don't like one punch and then just like punch through a human being, right? I understand they're holding back. That part I get. What I don't understand is when they get when they get hit, that certain people can knock them back at times, and certain times that they're totally fine. Like,
well, from what I've seen, anyone that's hit them and knocked them back are the main kind of villains. So Elektra, who has certain power levels, because she is pretty powerful. She's able to knock out Luke Cage. Well, kind of, not really, but she knocked out Jessica Jones. But like the Murakami, he's the one that he can actually knock down Luke Cage.
Yeah.
So I think it's explained, but not really.
Yeah, like, it just feels inconsistent because he got smacked in the head with the Iron Fist. Yeah. And, like, let's say Danny Rand pulled back because he didn't want to murder this guy, right? He still got hit pretty hard where it's like, it hurt. This is his brain we're talking about. He should have been rattled, right? And, like, okay, maybe Luke Cage is not, like, maybe that's not the best example, but, like, when you look at Jessica Jones, like sometimes she can, like, she has so much power, and sometimes she has not, and they're not even related to fighting, per se. Like, so she'll throw a punch or, like, try to move something and it doesn't move. And then suddenly she's holding the entire cable car by herself, like, effortlessly, right? Like, to me, that just it felt a little, like, they're conveniently using their superpower when the time needs to in the story versus, okay, this is how strong this person is. And it kind of, like, I want to tie this back into, like, there wasn't such a big threat in the show. Like, we don't have any, like, besides a Black Sky realistically and the other 4 members of the Hand, there's no real threat to threaten Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, because if they wanted to, they could have went on a full rampage, took everyone out, and, like, have coffee the next day.
I think part of that is, like, for the way I see it is I'm looking back in their own series where, okay, you already said how they're holding back. Especially Luke Cage, because he doesn't want to kill or
they referenced it too. Like,
so
they
Luke Cage
that.
makes
That's
sense.
Fine.
So he has not really used the full extent of his power. Jessica Jones, when you look at her own show, it doesn't seem like she knows her full power yet. Like, she does have the ability to jump really well.
Yeah.
Like, that's a weird thing, but she's done that once, kind of poorly in her original series. She did it in this show, Defenders, I think maybe just that last scene, when she jumped up to grab the elevator. But I think her power is still developing. But for you to know that, watching this show, is you really have to watch her own show. But I think that's where they're going with it, where she's starting to learn it. And it's kind of a thing that, a trope, I guess, that superhero movies and shows do, where when they don't know their power yet, eventually when there's an emergency, that's when they finally figure it out. And that's what I think happened here.
And to talk on what I guess Tom was explaining, just like Iron Fist, right? He can only summon his one hand, where technically he has 2 for Iron Fist. So they're learning their powers as they go, and that is why there's going to be more seasons. And hopefully we will see some improvements and some skills in the new season of Defenders, or whether in their new own series like Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Daredevil.
Well, you can also look at it this way. Iron Fist and Daredevil knows what they're going against with the hand. These are trained ninjas that are possibly enhanced with some kind of magic. And Luke Cage and Jessica Jones never met with this type of enemy. So to them, they might just see them as humans. They don't want to hurt them as much. Whereas Daredevil and Iron Fist knows that these guys are evil, and they're out to pretty much end them, right? So that could be a reason why as well.
And that's a pretty good explanation to those two characters, because in the last episode when they're deciding if they should blow up that building, the two that were painted to be holding off on agreeing to do that was Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. So when Jessica Jones finally says, you know what, I think that's a smart idea, Luke Cage was like, the way he reacted, it seems like he expected her to be on his side in this. But it's just because she wanted to go home. She wanted it to end, right? Because it's new territory for her. Before, she had nothing to do with ninjas in New York. It's a weird situation.
Okay, so moving on to our next topic. Did you guys notice anything in the entire series that kind of Easter egg like or foreshadow like that we can talk about? Like, I watched all 8 episodes within 2 days, so I just kind of watched it for what it was. I don't have that kind of eye for what maybe could be other than the obvious kind of things. But did you guys catch anything that was kind of particularly interesting inside the 8 episode series? We'll start off with maybe Victor.
Okay. I don't remember exactly which episode it was, but there was a Stan Lee cameo but not a person cameo. It was just a poster of him on the side of a building.
Yo, totally missed that. I didn't
see it either.
I think one of the major ones is Misty Knight getting her right arm chopped off.
That's right.
Yeah, because we kind of talked about this during Luke Cage, because we thought her arm was going to be cut off then, but it never happened. Mm-hmm. But it finally happened here, which leads to her in the comics getting her android arm made by adamantium, I believe it was at that time. But that's kind of how she, I guess her character really builds upon, and leads to her and Colleen Wing becoming Daughters of the Dragons and doing their little stint.
Alright, so the other Easter egg I saw was, I kind of just quickly mentioned Heroes for Hire. And it's, Heroes for Hire is Luke Cage and Iron Fist. They basically, become heroes for hire. It's in the name. I don't really have to explain that. But when Danny was being tied up in that room to kind of keep him safe, they were getting closer. They're becoming bros. And you can see that there's chemistry there. And it's kind of just, it's foreshadowing in the Heroes for Hire comics. But we don't know if they're going to really do that in the future. But it's very possible if once maybe Iron Fist finally deals with the whole Kunlun and the hand situation, it has to get somewhere, right? So maybe they go towards that.
So during the very last episode, when Jessica Jones and Luke Cage were meeting up for drinks, Jessica Jones mentioned that eventually, maybe later on, they'll meet up for coffee. And we know that watching Luke Cage and Defenders, coffee to him means that they're going to go have some fun, adult style. So we know that in the comics, they do eventually get married and have a kid. So this seems like it's foreshadowing to that later on. We don't know when, but it's most likely going to happen. But I think the biggest Easter egg for the Defenders was at the very end of the last episode, when we find out that Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, is actually still alive. That's not the significant part. The significant part comes when that nun sitting on the bed calls out for Maggie. So for those that don't know, in the comics, long story short, Kingpin finds out who Daredevil is, ruins his life, but during this time, he finds his birth mother, Maggie, which we find out in the comics that she ran away to become a sister of nuns. So from this, we're gonna meet Daredevil's real mother, and from how Kingpin's been introduced into the Netflix world, they might go this way and have a storyline based upon that. Maybe Daredevil season 3, because they didn't really mention anything yet. We just know it's going to happen. But there is a possibility of by bringing out Matt Murdock's true mother, it could lead to the storyline.
It's interesting you bring that up too, because I didn't know. Two things I didn't know was Daredevil was getting a third season until now, and two, that there's a storyline that exists that where Matt Murdock's identity is revealed, because there's a lot of conversation between Foggy and Karen and Matt Murdock about Ryan not being found out. He's riding that fine line. People could figure out just by putting the pieces together that Matt Murdock was the Devils of Hell's Kitchen, right? So all that conversation, I know it kind of carried over from the Daredevil series, but now that you mention it, like with this, what's it called, Born Again storyline, where for Daredevil, it's kind of like really pushing it into that direction. So, like, I kind of like now that I know of the story that exists, it sounds like they might fall into that storyline.
It's a smart move, I guess. So you kind of know that after this Defenders and probably the next Iron Fist, the Hand is probably not going to be much of a story arc anymore. I think they're going to be basically completely gone or very close to it. So it kind of makes sense for them to already have a story arc for the next Daredevil. And from what we can see is same thing for Luke Cage. It seems like there might be a new story arc because Misty's arm's gone. Yeah, so I guess Marvel they're kind of doing the right thing. They're kind of moving into they're being smart where they're having everyone's own story arcs that aren't really related, and you don't ask that question. It's like, hey, where's the other Defenders? So it makes sense.
Let's kind of start wrapping up this conversation here. I just want everyone's kind of take on what's your one favorite scene or part moment, and one thing that maybe you didn't like. I won't say hate, that's a pretty big word. Let's say a part that you didn't really like. We'll start with a part you didn't like, and then you'll tell me your favorite scene or favorite moment in the series.
Okay, so for me, I kind of have two things I don't like, two things I like. First of all, the things I don't like. I thought that Alexandra could have been a bigger threat. I wanted to see something or someone more menacing as the leader for the Hand. Second thing I didn't really like was the Hand always been this crazy gang of ninjas ran by some kind of evil figure. I wanted to see more ninjas in it. I want to see them get swarmed, to the point where they're almost barely breathing because there's so many people around them. But I guess, maybe later on they'll redo it when the Hand comes back or something. For the two things I do like, when they gathered together for the very first time in the building, that was awesome. Just seeing them all in the same place fighting together for the very first time. Second thing I like was when they actually told Iron Fist he's the dumbest Iron Fist there is so far, which I found hilarious because it was probably true at that point.
So I do agree with Victor there. The part that I didn't like was Sigourney Weaver was really underutilized in this series. And also another thing I don't like about this series is Danny Rand's a little bitch. I just don't know. I understand he just came back to New York. Everything's pretty green to him, but he complains a lot and he's just really reckless. Two things I like. Fact that is, I like how they're brought all together. So from Rosario Dawson, Claire Temple, bringing Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and then Matt Murdock, Jessica Jones, is how they turn all of them together. Second favorite part, which is correlated to the first part that I liked, was the fight scenes together. And especially at the end in the cave when they were fighting Elektra and also the bunch of bandits. It was a pretty cool fight scene, and having teamwork together really shows what the Defenders is all about.
Alright, so the thing I didn't like, I would have enjoyed it more if is how they use Claire. Because Claire is like Agent Coulson for the Netflix series. I wish like there was more interaction where she was there with all four of them going, hey, like, I know all of you kind of thing. Because she is the constant in all these shows. And it's nice when you see her. Like, I love seeing her. So, only time you ever saw her with all of them was in, I think, the second to last episode and the last episode for very brief moment. The thing I liked about the show is, and it's for basically any of these Marvel movies or shows, where the first time Luke Cage met Danny Rand and they went into that fight, I like that. Hey, like, this is how we're meeting, and it shows off their powers. And then when Matt Murdock walks into the precinct when Jessica Jones needed a lawyer, I guess, or she was being interrogated, and he just walks in, and there was that small interaction. So those are my favorite parts.
So the parts, I guess, I didn't really like as much. One was the dialogue. In general, it was very basic, which is fine. I don't mind. But there's just some of it, sometimes in some scenes, it just didn't flow very nicely. That wasn't, okay, let's be fair, maybe not the dialogue itself, just the chemistry between the actors. Like, between Luke Cage and Danny Rand, when they had their kind of bro moments, at first they were kind of, like, their dialogue together was kind of forced, and then got really good near the end, especially when they got tied up. It was a little bit more real at that point. So maybe it was just a chemistry issue during the filming process, but I didn't fully like that. It got better, which was great. And like I said, the dialogue is simple, which is fine because this is a comic book TV show, so it still kind of holds true to those kind of comic book that style where you're not going to like litter a page full of text, right? So you're not going to litter an entire TV show with a bunch of text. But I really wish some of the conversations are a little bit more, a little bit deeper, not deeper, maybe a little less simplistic, just for anything. Just between like Claire and Colleen, when Claire called Colleen the Foundation. Like I didn't even, that conversation seemed really out of place and awkward, but it makes sense at the same time. Another part, it's funny because I think Ernest just said that one of his like favorite parts is how he saw the Defenders come together. No, that was Victor. Victor said that. How he comes together. And that's the part I kind of didn't like, because this is like the typical Marvel formula. Like, you go watch the Avengers movie, right? Like, oh, everyone will meet somehow, which is great. I liked how they met. And then they all convene. They'll have a very short stint where they all work together in one climactic scene. And then they kind of do the final scene where, okay, they're all getting their own movies, or all getting their own TV shows. So it kind of has that feeling towards it again. I was hoping that maybe they shy away from it and just leave us in the dark a bit more. But I understand it is necessary to have scenes like that to get us all hyped up about the next storyline and to kind of segue us into the next storyline. But I was hoping they'd kind of veer away from that, given this is one of those collaborative movies. But yeah, the parts that I liked the most, I was kind of torn because I want to say the action scenes as well, but that's just I think that's a recency kind of effect for me, a recency bias. I watched Iron Fist last, and I didn't think that was good, so anything was a considerable improvement. But like, then when we go back to DareDevil, like, well, it's not quite as good as DareDevil. They had some really good scenes there, but yeah, the action sequences were pretty good. But I think my favorite part was when they referenced DareDevil to be some sort of prodigy. I can't even say this word. A fighting prodigy. And then he goes in the opening scene, I think, opening fight sequence when they fought in the parking lot on the last episode. He takes on two members of the Hand. He takes on, Murakami, and I want to say Bakuto, because I think those were only 2 left at that point. So they fought those 2, and it was Madame Gao versus Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. I like that scene a lot. Yeah. What was Iron Fist? So he's captured. So it was 3-on-3. That makes sense now. That's I'm running through my brain here. So that part was really cool because like, oh man, like Matt Murdock of the four literally has no powers, but they kind of like put him in a way that okay, he is a kind of I won't say once in a lifetime, but it really sound like it. Once in a lifetime kind of fighting prodigy. So like he was able to take on 2 members of the hand, fingers of the hand, like relatively, I won't say easily. He was throwing his punches. He was getting punched too, but I thought that was pretty cool because I like Daredevil a lot in this Netflix series, and he was pretty cool.
You know, it's the thing about that is Stick early on before he died, he said like you're the only one that could lead this team, so it kind of does make sense that they made Daredevil fight both of them while Jessica Jones and Luke Cage only fought one person.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up this discussion. We'll give it our standard, unstandard rating here. I don't know. Us like giving numbers, assigning numbers to things, and judging things in whole. I'll start it off. I guess it was a good series. I liked it a lot. Significantly better than Iron Fist. I will forever rag on it, and that will be forever the sore spot for this entire series. These Netflix Marvel series until someone makes a worse one. So we'll see. Hopefully that never happens. But great story, great action, nice short 8-episode series you can just kind of binge watch over the weekend, which is great. So I'm gonna give it 8 out of Jessica Jones scarves out of 10. Sorry, I really lost. That's first thing popped in my 8 out of 10 for me.
It's nice that. Yeah, I like the series. It's better than Iron Fist. Most people can't say that Iron Fist is, better than any of the other ones. But I would give it, 8 episodes out of 13.
I thoroughly enjoyed the Defender series. I think it was one of the best ones in terms of when you're watching the other Netflix Marvel series. So I'm going to give it also 8 Kunluns out of 10 Kunluns.
You just want to say that word.
Yes, it's a pretty addictive word.
Okay, and for me, great series. A few missed opportunities that I see, but overall, it was really well done, and it was a great experience. Had fun watching it. So I'm going to give it 8 Android Misty arms out of 10.
All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you guys have anything that you contribute to our discussion, please put it in the comments below. Like and subscribe to our channel for any future content. Other than that, have a good day. Thanks.
Until next time.